Ladies and gentlemen, look closely at your mind right now. Listen to the voice that tells you you're not enough, that repeats old mistakes, that imagines shadows where there is light. This voice, your constant critic, is not you. It's just noise, echoing in a hollow chamber. And if you do not learn how to silence it, it will build a prison around you. If you've ever wondered why happiness slips through your fingers, why peace feels so temporary, the answer lies buried in your unchecked thoughts. Negative thoughts are parasites. They feed on your energy and leave you empty. If you watch this until the end, you will understand how to rip these thoughts out by the roots, how to stand where no fear can reach you, and how to train your mind to become your greatest ally instead of your deepest enemy. Stay until the last word, because the freedom you seek is not out there. It's right here, within you. The first truth is simple. You are not your thoughts. Thoughts come and go like clouds across a clear sky. Some are bright and gentle, others are storms, dark and heavy. But the sky does not fight the storm. It remains untouched, vast, open. The storm only passes through. When you believe every negative thought, you forget you are the sky. You shrink yourself to a storm that was never yours to keep. So learn to observe. Notice when you say, I am worthless. I always fail. I can't change. See those words for what they are, echoes of past fears, old conditioning. Words planted by others, not truths you must carry forever. Negative thoughts breed more of themselves. One complaint becomes an entire story of suffering. One fear becomes an endless cycle of worry. But the moment you catch this pattern, truly catch it, you break its chain. Awareness is your first weapon. Each time you notice a negative thought, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this true? Where did this come from? What happens if I let this go? Most thoughts dissolve under the light of your attention. Then turn your mind to the present. The present is a sword that cuts through illusion. Here, now. There is no regret, no anxiety, no what is. There is only what is. The breath, the beat of your heart, the feeling of the ground beneath your feet. Silence is your refuge. When you quiet the mind, you open space for new seeds, gratitude, clarity, calm. This silence is not an empty void. It is a garden where real strength grows. But this is not a lesson you learn once. It is a discipline. Like a garden, your mind must be tended every day. Weed out the thoughts that choke your joy. Water the thoughts that nourish your soul. Be patient. Be ruthless with the weeds. Be kind to the flowers. When you stop feeding your negative thoughts, they wither and die. What remains is you, not the you that others shape with fear and doubt, but the you that has always been here, whole, awake, alive. Stand guard at the gates of your mind. Kill your negative thoughts, not by violence, but by starving them of your attention. Replace them with presence. Fill your mind with stillness, and watch how your life blooms in the silence that remains. Negative thoughts are like weeds in a garden you didn't know you were tending. When you were young, perhaps no one told you that your mind is fertile soil. Everything planted there, intentionally or by accident, will grow if left unattended. Words spoken to you, beliefs whispered by fearful people, moments of pain you never understood. These seeds sink into the soil of your mind and sprout thoughts. Some grow into wildflowers, hope, courage, curiosity. Others become weeds, resentment, shame, doubt. And if you do not learn to see the difference, the weeds take over until the flowers are choked of light. Most people walk through life never realizing they are gardeners. They wake each day wondering why life feels so heavy, why the air inside their own heads is stale with judgment and fear. They blame the weather, the world, other people. But the truth is, the garden is theirs alone to tend. If you do not pull the weeds, they spread. One negative thought doesn't stay alone. It calls in its family. Think of it. One tiny voice that says, "You're not good enough," quickly finds friends. You'll never succeed. Why even try? Who do you think you are? Before you know it, a single seed of doubt becomes a thicket of excuses and regrets that you carry with you like a burden strapped to your back. To see your mind as a garden is to reclaim your responsibility and your power. No gardener blames the weeds for growing. Weeds do what weeds do. They appear wherever they can. They need no permission. But the wise gardener knows that pulling weeds is not a punishment. It is care. It is love for what might grow in their place. Every time you choose to notice a negative thought and not feed it, you are pulling a weed. You are clearing space for light to reach what is healthy and beautiful inside you. Sometimes the seeds of negativity are sown by others, a parent who never believed in themselves, a teacher who mocked your dreams, a friend who poured their fears into your open heart. But once those seeds are planted, they are yours to uproot. No one will do it for you. If you ignore them, they send roots deep into your sense of self, entwining with your identity until you believe you are the weeds, that you are lazy, unworthy, broken. But pause for a moment and think. Have you ever sat quietly and watched your own thoughts come and go? You might see that negativity is not constant. It's not a single, immovable wall. It's a swarm of small, persistent intrusions, coming and going like stubborn pests. If you stand back, if you do not water them with your attention, they weaken. They depend on your belief to survive. The more you argue with them, the more you fertilize them. The more you accept them as truth, the deeper their roots go. A skilled gardener knows that weeds will always try to return. Pulling them once is not enough. Some seeds sleep under the surface for years, waiting for the right season to sprout. The same is true for negative thoughts. You may think you've outgrown an old fear. Then one bad day, one careless word, and it pushes up through the soil again. This is not failure. This is nature. Your mind, like a garden, needs ongoing care. You must visit it daily. Notice what is growing there. What needs water? What needs sunlight? What needs to be pulled out by the root and thrown away? Some weeds look like flowers at first. A thought that says, "I must be perfect," can feel like ambition, but watch how it chokes your peace when you inevitably fail to be flawless. A thought that says, "I don't need anyone," can feel like strength, but look at how it walls you off from love and warmth. Learn to recognize these weeds disguised as virtue. You do not have to wage war in your garden. Pulling weeds does not require anger or harshness. It requires attention and gentle persistence. When you see a weed, do not curse it. Thank it for showing you where your care is needed. Then pull it up, root and all. And when the weeds clear, when sunlight hits the earth again, plant something new. A thought of gratitude, a whisper of courage, a vision of who you want to become. In this way you reclaim the ground of your mind. Little by little, the weeds lose their hold. The flowers find room to breathe. And one morning you will wake up and realize that the garden you walk through is calm, open, and alive with color, because you chose to tend it, to guard it, to love it enough to keep the weeds at bay. Most people live their whole lives imprisoned by a simple misunderstanding. They believe they are their thoughts. If the mind says, "I'm not good enough," they nod in agreement, as if that judgment were carved into their bones. If the mind whispers, "You'll always fail," they accept it as prophecy. Yet if you pause for a moment and truly look at where these thoughts come from, you'll find something liberating. They are not you. They pass through you like weather across the sky. They appear, stay for a moment, and drift away, unless you cling to them and give them the power to shape your reality. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds the storm. You are the vast space in which thoughts, feelings, and memories arise and dissolve. This is easy to say, but difficult to see, because most people have lived so long identified with every word their mind utters that they've forgotten what it feels like to just be. To sit silently and witness thought without grasping it is like watching leaves float by on a river. You don't have to leap into the water and chase every leaf downstream. But we do chase them. Why? Because we confuse thinking with being alive. We think our endless commentary, our worries, our imagined arguments and regrets are what makes us real. Yet if you sit still and watch your thoughts without attachment, you'll see they lose their grip. One moment you're furious, the next you're calm. One moment you're drowning in doubt, the next you're laughing at something beautiful you hadn't noticed before. Changed. Not you. Only the clouds that drifted across the sky of your mind. Imagine waking up each morning and instead of listening to your mind chatter on about yesterday's mistakes and tomorrow's fears, you step back and notice the chatter as noise, background static that has nothing to do with your deepest self. For a few moments you touch the quiet awareness beneath it all, the calm presence that simply watches. In that space, there is no judgment, no fear, no past or future. There is only this, the breath moving in and out, the beating heart, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the miracle of being alive. It's not that thoughts are enemies. The mind is a wonderful servant when used wisely. It solves problems, imagines possibilities, and learns from mistakes. But it was never meant to be your master. When you let thoughts rule you, they become tyrants, dragging you through endless cycles of regret and worry. When you remember you are the one watching, you put the mind back in its rightful place. You see that a thought saying, "I'm not enough," is just that, a string of words, not a sentence, you must carry as truth. So how do you stop believing your thoughts? Not by fighting them. Fighting thoughts only feeds them. Not by drowning them out. Ignoring them only pushes them into the shadows where they grow stronger. Instead, you watch them with clear, steady attention. You see a thought arise, you name it. Fear, doubt, regret. And you let it float by, like a cloud. It cannot linger if you do not grasp it. Try this. The next time your mind throws up something cruel or heavy, pause and ask, who is hearing this? Who is aware of this thought? The moment you ask, you remember there is something deeper, something wider than any thought. The witness cannot be touched by the thing it observes. Fire cannot burn itself. This practice does not erase negative thoughts forever. Nothing can stop clouds from forming in the sky, but when you see thoughts as passing weather instead of your identity, they lose their power to control you. You no longer live at the mercy of old stories and tired judgments. You become free to choose. Do I believe this thought? Does it help me grow? Does it deserve my energy? In this freedom, life softens. There is space between the noise and your true self. You find moments of stillness that no storm can disturb. You taste what it's like to be the sky, vast, open, and untouched by the passing clouds. And in that vastness, negativity has no roots. It drifts in, drifts out, but it does not stay, because you no longer mistake it for who you are. One of the strangest habits of the human mind is its talent for feeding on its own misery. Left unattended, a single negative thought does not stay alone. It multiplies, draws in more shadows, and soon you find yourself surrounded by echoes of the same fear spoken in 100 different ways. It begins so quietly, a moment of self-doubt when you fail to meet a goal, a harsh word someone throws at you when you're unprepared, a memory that surfaces when you least expect it. But once the mind finds a crack, it rushes in like water through stone, widening the gap, wearing you down from the inside. This is how negative thoughts breed more negativity. It is not the thought itself that is so powerful. It is your attention to it, your belief in its story, your willingness to replay it over and over like a broken record. One small worry, I might fail, easily grows into a narrative, I always fail. That thought drags in every old failure you've ever experienced and stacks them like evidence in a courtroom where you are both the defendant and the harshest judge. And while you're busy arguing with this voice, trying to disprove it or drown it out, you don't notice that your energy is leaking away. It's like trying to clean muddy water with your bare hands. The more you stir it, the murkier it gets. But this is what most people do every single day. They replay old arguments in their head, imagine what they should have said, worry about things that haven't happened yet, torture themselves with regrets about things that cannot be changed. All of this happens inside the mind's closed loop. Meanwhile, life is happening, fresh and alive. But the mind is too busy chewing on the past or the imagined future to notice the beauty in front of it. And so negativity becomes a habit, a reflex. It feeds on itself. One negative thought finds another, and soon your mind is a room filled with shadows that you mistake for reality. When you carry these thoughts long enough, they shape your actions. If you constantly tell yourself you're unworthy, you start to act in ways that confirm it. You shrink from opportunities, sabotage your own efforts, push away people who might love you. The mind says, see, I was right. But it was right only because you let it be right. And this cycle repeats day after day, year after year, until your entire sense of self is tangled in a web of your own making. This is why breaking free from negative thinking is not just about thinking positive. It is about seeing clearly how thoughts build walls around you, how they thrive when you feed them your attention and emotion. You don't break the cycle by wrestling each negative thought to the ground. You break it by refusing to give it what it needs to grow. Just like fire dies without fuel, negative thoughts wither when you stop feeding them belief and focus. But this requires awareness, the kind of honest seeing that notices when your mind is slipping into an old story. Notice when one small worry suddenly turns into a whole dark tale about your failures. Notice how your body feels when you believe these thoughts, the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your shoulders, the restless energy that keeps you awake at night. Then step back. Observe the story without stepping inside it. See it for what it is, an old habit, a pattern, not a truth carved in stone. You can break the cycle. Every time you refuse to follow a negative thought down its familiar path, you weaken its hold. You teach your mind a new habit, to stay here, now, where the past cannot touch you and the future cannot frighten you. You train yourself to notice the good that lives alongside the bad, the breath that keeps you alive, the warmth in someone's smile, the small victories that the mind likes to overlook while it's busy collecting evidence for your failure. This is not easy work. It takes patience and practice. But every moment you catch a negative thought and see it clearly, you take away its power to multiply. You interrupt the chain reaction. And slowly, the atmosphere of your mind changes. The shadows thin out. The endless echo of self-criticism grows quiet. In its place is something spacious, open, a mind no longer addicted to its own suffering. And you, standing there in that space, realize you have always had this power, the power to stop feeding the weeds and start tending to what is bright and true. The more you do this, the more you understand. Negativity only rules you if you agree to give it your life force. When you withdraw that agreement, you are free. Before you can kill a negative thought, you must first see it for what it is. This sounds simple, but for most people it is the most difficult step of all. We live so close to our thoughts that they feel like facts. A thought appears. I'm not good enough, I always mess up for me, and before we even notice it, we've accepted it. It settles into us like a stone sinking into water, dragging us down before we realize what's happening. Before we realize what's happening. Awareness is the light that reveals these hidden stones. Without awareness, a negative thought slips in unnoticed and multiplies in the dark. It burrows into the mind, grows roots, shapes our moods, our words, our actions. But once the light of attention touches it, it loses some of its power. It's like turning on a lamp in a room you thought was haunted, only to see there was nothing there but shadows, cast by ordinary things. The first practice is noticing. This means stepping back far enough from your thoughts to see them instead of being them. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. Each thought is a leaf drifting by on the water's surface. Most of us jump into the river and get carried away by the current, fighting with thoughts, drowning in memories, dragged into stories that haven't happened yet. Awareness is stepping out of the river, standing still on the bank, and simply watching the leaves float by. At first, this is uncomfortable. We are not used to observing our own minds. We are used to being swept away. You may sit quietly and immediately feel restless. A thought appears. This is pointless. And the habit is to follow that thought. Yes, this will never work. I can't change. I've always been like this. Before you know it, you're lost in the river again. But if you stay still, if you keep watching, you'll begin to see the pattern. The thoughts come and go. Some are bright, some are heavy. None of them are you. They are visitors passing through the open space of your awareness. Seeing clearly means naming what you find. When a harsh thought appears, say silently to yourself, there is doubt. When anger rises, say, there is anger. When fear whispers its old story, say, there is fear. This simple naming loosens the grip. You create a space between the thought and the one who sees it. In that space, freedom lives. It is not enough to notice a negative thought once. You must learn to catch it in the small, quiet moments when it slips in, disguised as something reasonable. Many negative thoughts wear masks. I'm just being realistic. I'm protecting myself from disappointment. But look closer. Often, these reasonable thoughts are only fear in a clever disguise. Awareness strips away the mask. When you become aware of your negative thoughts, you start to see where they come from. Maybe they are echoes of old words spoken by parents who were afraid themselves. Maybe they are the voice of a teacher who told you you'd never amount to anything. Maybe they are your own mind repeating painful lessons you never questioned. Awareness does not erase these voices overnight, but it does stop you from believing they are the ultimate truth. Some people fear awareness because they think looking too closely will make the negativity stronger. But the opposite is true. What you ignore festers in the dark. What you bring into the light of honest attention loses its power to control you. Imagine trying to fight a shadow in a dark room. You swing and strike but hit nothing. Turn on the light, and the shadow dissolves. Of course, awareness alone does not mean the thought disappears forever. The mind is a restless thing. Negative thoughts will come back, sometimes dressed in new clothes. But each time you catch them, you remind yourself that you are the watcher, not the thought. You teach your mind a new habit. Instead of grabbing every passing worry, you greet it. See it for what it is, and let it drift by. With practice, this seeing becomes second nature. A harsh thought appears, and you see it like a cloud in the distance. You know it will pass. You no longer chase it or fear it. You do not fight it or believe it. You simply notice, name, and release. In this simple act, you reclaim your mind, moment by moment. You stand in the clear light of awareness, where negativity has nowhere to hide, and no roots deep enough to bind you. You see the thought, and because you see it, it cannot own you. Presence is not some distant mystical state you must travel far to find. It is the plain, ordinary here and now that we overlook every day, while we chase thoughts of what was and what might be. The moment you return to presence, negative thoughts begin to lose their grip, because they cannot exist without the fuel of your past or the worry of your future. Most people do not live in this moment. They live in remembered pain, in imagined outcomes, in old conversations they keep replaying until they are worn thin with regret or resentment. They sit across from someone they love and nod politely, all the while lost in a mental fog of unfinished tasks, past mistakes, or invented futures that rarely arrive. Meanwhile, life is here, breathing, pulsing, unfolding in real time. But they are not awake to see it. Negative thoughts breed in that mental absence. They thrive in the shadows of distraction, in the unchecked momentum of unconscious living. But when you return your attention to what is actually happening, not what your mind says should be happening, the weeds of negativity have nothing to cling to. Try it now. Pause for just a moment. Notice the sensation of your breath, entering and leaving your body. Feel the weight of your feet on the floor. Listen to the small sounds around you. Maybe a distant hum. Maybe birds outside a window. Maybe just the silence holding it all together. In this simple noticing, your mind touches presence. And for a moment, the old thoughts lose their place. Presence is not about fighting thoughts or banishing them. It's about seeing that you have another place to rest your attention. The reality unfolding now, which is always deeper than any story your mind spins. When you stand fully in this moment, you realize that most negative thoughts are echoes from another time. They are old recordings replaying themselves. Fear learned from childhood, criticism borrowed from others, predictions of failure that have no root in what is actually happening right now. The mind trained in presence notices when the old recording starts to play. It sees the habit, but does not get swept away by it. Instead, it returns gently to the here and now, to the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the feel of water on your hands as you wash a dish, the simple miracle that you are breathing, heart beating, alive. Returning to presence is not dramatic work. It happens in small, ordinary moments. You might be walking down the street, mind racing with anxieties about tomorrow. Then suddenly you feel the wind brush your face. For a heartbeat, the story stops. The mind lands where your feet are. In that small gap, negativity falls silent. It is tempting to believe that you must solve your negative thoughts. to be free of them. But often the opposite is true. The more you analyze them, argue with them, or try to fix them, the more tangled you become. Presence doesn't argue. It does not need to justify or explain. It simply brings you back to what is true now. And in this now, you are almost always okay. Not perfect, not without challenge, but breathing, alive, capable of meeting life directly. Presence is a practice, not a single act. You train yourself to return again and again. Each time you catch your mind drifting into an old worry or judgment, you choose to come back to the breath, to the feeling of your body, to the sound of your own heartbeat. This is not escape, it is the opposite. It is stepping out of the maze your mind builds and standing in the open air of what is real. In this open space, you see that negative thoughts cannot stand on their own. They need a past to regret or a future to fear. But the present moment, this clear, living now, holds neither regret nor fear. It simply holds what is. And what is almost always carries something to be grateful for, something fresh, something not touched by the old stories. A mind rooted in presence is like a tree rooted deeply in the earth. Storms come, harsh thoughts, old worries, but the roots hold you steady. The wind may shake your branches, but it cannot uproot you from what is real and alive beneath your feet. So each time you find yourself lost in the weeds of your mind, remember you have this simple doorway: the breath, the heartbeat, the feel of this moment. Each time you step through it, you reclaim a piece of yourself from the shadows. And slowly, steadily, you discover that presence is not an idea. It is your natural state, waiting patiently beneath every thought you have ever believed. Silence frightens the mind, because in silence there is nowhere for your thoughts to hide. Yet silence is not emptiness. It is a living space, a fertile ground where your deepest clarity and strength can grow. Most people misunderstand silence. They think it means suppressing thoughts, forcing the mind to shut up, pushing away noise by sheer force of will. But real silence is not something you make, it's something you remember. It is always here, beneath the endless chatter, like the still depth beneath a restless ocean surface. When you sit quietly, you may feel restless at first. The mind resists. It does not want to be seen for what it is. A stream of thoughts passing through an awareness far vaster than itself. So it kicks and screams. It throws old fears at you. You're wasting time. This is pointless. You should be doing something productive. But if you stay with it, if you allow the noise to exist without following it, a shift happens. The thoughts keep moving, but you are no longer tangled in them. A quiet space opens up, not because the thoughts are gone, but because you are no longer lost inside them. This silence is not dull or dead. It is awake. It is the same silence that exists when you stand alone in the woods, hearing only the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird. It is the same silence that fills you when you lie awake at night and the world sleeps. It is the spaciousness that holds all sounds, all thoughts, yet remains untouched by them. Inside this silence, negative thoughts cannot root themselves in the same way. They may appear, but they lose their stickiness. Without your habitual reaction, your fear, your defense, your argument, the thought floats by like a leaf on still water. The silence does not fight it. It simply absorbs it and remains whole. Many people carry a constant hum of inner noise. They wake up with worries, rehearse complaints in the shower, replay arguments while driving, drown themselves in news and distractions just to keep the quiet at bay. But ask yourself, when did any of that noise ever give you peace? Has thinking the same anxious thought 10,000 times ever solved it? Has replaying an old hurt ever healed it? What truly heals is the space where those thoughts can dissolve, the silence where you see the thought clearly without being drawn into its drama. In that seeing, something shifts. You stop feeding the thought with your attention. You don't have to push it away. You just don't pick it up anymore. Silence is not an escape. It does not mean you ignore your responsibilities or float away from reality. It means you meet reality directly, without the filter of endless mental commentary. You begin to see life as it is, not as your noisy mind insists it should be. And in that clear seeing, wisdom arises naturally. Answers appear not because you forced them, but because you made space for them to come. Practice sitting in silence, even for a few minutes each day. Watch how uncomfortable your mind gets. Watch how quickly it tries to distract you with something urgent. Your phone, your to-do list, a memory, a worry. Smile at this. It means you are doing it right. The mind is losing its usual hold. At first, the silence may feel empty, even boring. But stay with it. Beneath the surface, boredom is a deep well of calm. Stay longer, and you touch a subtle joy, not excitement, but a quiet contentment that does not depend on anything going right or wrong. It simply is. This is the ground where real strength grows. A mind rooted in silence is not easily shaken. When criticism comes, you hear it. Learn what you can, and let the rest pass. When fear whispers its familiar threats, you watch it like a cloud drifting across a vast sky. It does not define you. In this silence, there is space to plant new seeds. Thoughts that are true, intentions that nourish, visions that uplift. You cannot plant these in a mind choked with noise, but in the open field of inner stillness, anything can grow. Find moments of silence each day, not because it's a trendy habit or a spiritual chore, but because it is where your clearest self lives. When you meet this silence often enough, you bring it with you into the noise of the world. Then, even in a crowded room, even in a busy day, there remains inside you a quiet garden, untouched, clear, alive. And from this silent garden you can watch your negative thoughts come and go, powerless to take root in the calm ground of your being. A mind left untrained is like a wild horse, strong, restless, and easily spooked by shadows. It runs wherever it pleases, often dragging you behind it. One moment it races into the past to dig up old regrets. The next it bolts into the future, imagining worst-case scenarios that leave your heart pounding as if they're real. This is how most people live, pulled this way and that by an untamed mind, exhausted by thoughts they never chose, yet believe completely. To kill your negative thoughts, you must first understand that discipline is not about controlling the mind through force. It is about training it through gentle, steady practice, like a patient rider earning the trust of a spirited horse. The mind is powerful. It can build worlds, solve impossible problems, dream up beauty and innovation. But the same power, left untrained, turns inward and eats at you with doubt, worry, and self-sabotage. Training the mind is simple in principle, but challenging in practice. It means choosing, moment after moment, where to place your attention. If your mind drifts toward complaint, bring it back to gratitude. If it fixates on fear, return it to the breath, to the sensation of your feet on the ground, to the calm truth of what is actually happening right now. Every time you do this, you build strength. You show the mind that you are in charge of where your focus goes. Think of discipline not as punishment, but as devotion. A gardener does not resent watering the plants every day. They do it because they know a garden left unattended grows wild with weeds. The same is true of your mind. Every time you catch yourself lost in negative thinking and gently return to presence, you are tending your garden. At first it may feel like nothing is changing. The same old weeds pop up again and again, but slowly, with each act of returning, the roots grow weaker. The soil becomes richer for better seeds to take hold. This discipline is not about becoming rigid or perfect. It is about becoming aware of the habits that poison you from within, the reflex to complain, the impulse to judge yourself harshly, the tendency to imagine the worst, and then choosing not to indulge them. It is about choosing your thoughts as carefully as you choose the food you eat, because both nourish or poison you from the inside out. Many people say, I can't control my thoughts. But this is only partly true. You cannot control which thoughts appear. They come and go like clouds. But you can choose which ones to feed. A single fearful thought left alone passes quickly. But when you grab it, replay it, build a story around it, you give it life. You turn a fleeting shadow into a storm. Discipline means you learn to stop feeding what drains you. You notice when your mind wants to replay an old hurt and you say, not today. You notice when it wants to pick apart your worth and you say, no thank you, with calm, firm redirection. Again and again you guide the mind back to what is useful, true, and kind. A disciplined mind is not empty. It is clear. It is a mind that knows how to rest in stillness and act with intention. It does not lurch from worry to worry like a leaf in the wind. It stands like a tree, rooted, flexible enough to bend but not break. Training the mind takes time. There will be days you feel you're starting from scratch, days when old habits roar back louder than ever. This is natural. The mind will test your commitment. It will pull out every excuse, every distraction, every old fear to tempt you back into unconsciousness. Let it come. Let the old noise rise and pass. Return again. That is the discipline, not perfection, but returning. Over and over until the mind understands you are not its servant. In this quiet mastery, negative thoughts lose their power. They may knock on the door, but you do not invite them in for tea. You see them for what they are, echoes of old conditioning, stories that no longer belong in the life you are building. So treat your mind with care. Train it with patience. Water what is good. Starve what is harmful. And watch how your inner world transforms. When discipline becomes devotion, your mind becomes your ally. Clear, strong, and calm enough to meet life as it is, without drowning in the storms it once created. Freedom beyond negativity is not an abstract promise. It's a living state you can taste. The moment you stop giving your energy to thoughts that diminish you, so much of our suffering is born not from reality itself, but from the stories we replay in our minds. We think we are bound by our past, by what others have said about us, by the mistakes we made or the opportunities we missed. These memories and fears become the chains that keep us locked in place, but the truth is simple and sometimes unsettling. The lock is inside your mind, and you hold the key. Imagine for a moment that every negative thought is like an uninvited guest knocking at your door. For years, you may have welcomed these guests in without question. They arrive with familiar stories. You're not enough. Nothing will change. Life is unfair. You give them your time, your attention, your energy. They sit at your table and drain you. until there is nothing left for the parts of you that want to grow. And yet you have always had the choice not to open the door. Freedom comes when you realize you don't have to argue with these guests, you don't have to fight them or prove them wrong, you simply stop letting them in. You see them, you nod, and you turn your attention back to what is alive and real now. The thought loses its power when you no longer offer it your mind as a home. This freedom is not cold detachment or some forced positive thinking. It is warm, awake presence that sees negativity for what it is. An old echo that cannot hold you unless you hold it. You begin to understand that you were never truly bound. You were only tangled in your own permission to believe the lies your mind repeats. When you stop feeding negative thoughts, you do not become blind to life's challenges. You see them more clearly than ever, but without the heavy fog of unnecessary suffering. Problems are met as they are, imperfect, sometimes painful, yet not made worse by the endless what if and why me that negativity loves to whisper. The freedom beyond negativity is gentle but fierce. It is the freedom of a mind that can stand in the middle of life's storms and say, "This too shall pass." It is the strength of knowing you are not your thoughts, your mistakes, or your old fears. You are the space they pass through, wide enough to hold them, but never owned by them. When you taste this freedom, even for a moment, you see how much more energy you have for what truly matters. All the force you once gave to worrying and replaying hurts is now yours to direct into creating, loving, and living. It is as if you have been carrying a heavy bag on your back for so long that you forgot what it feels like to stand upright and breathe fully. When you set it down, life rushes in fresh and new. This does not mean negative thoughts disappear forever. They will knock on the door again. Fear, doubt, anger, shame, that is their nature. But you meet them differently. You know now that you can let them pass without feeding them. They lose their sharpness when they no longer draw your belief. They become like passing clouds, unable to block the sun of your awareness for long. Freedom beyond negativity does not come all at once. It comes choice by choice, moment by moment. Every time you catch yourself sinking into an old story and gently pull your mind back to the present, you strengthen your freedom. Every time you sit in silence and watch a dark thought float by without chasing it, you claim more of your life back from the grip of the past. Soon a day comes when you realize you have changed. You still feel pain when it visits, but you do not build a home for it. You still hear the old doubts, but you do not let them steer your life. In that quiet strength, you find a new identity, one not shaped by wounds and fear, but by calm, steady awareness that you are free to grow, to act, to create something different. This is what it means to live beyond negativity. Not by pretending darkness does not exist, but by refusing to bow to it. By remembering every day that the mind can imagine prisons, but only you can choose whether to stay inside them. So when the old thoughts come knocking, greet them with a nod. Then turn back to the light of what you truly are. Spacious, resilient, and free. In the end, killing your negative thoughts is not about waging war inside your own mind. It is about seeing clearly that you are not what your thoughts say you are. It is about remembering that your mind is fertile ground, and you alone decide what is planted, what is watered, and what is pulled up by the roots. You are not powerless in this garden. You are its keeper. When you step back and watch the mind instead of drowning in it, you begin to see how thoughts come and go like passing weather. Some bring storms, some bring light. But none of them can stay without your permission. You do not silence your mind by force. You quiet it with presence, with gentle awareness, with the discipline to return again and again to what is real, here and now. Silence gives you the space to see that the old guests who used to drain you have no power when you stop opening the door. Presence roots you in the reality that beneath the noise there is always calm. And discipline teaches you to guard this calm, to tend to it daily, so the weeds do not take over again. The freedom you seek is not somewhere far away, it is here, waiting each time you choose to notice the thought but not become the thought, to feel the fear but not feed it, to hear the old story but refuse to live by it anymore. This is the quiet revolution inside you, the patient turning of your mind away from what poisons you and toward what heals you. Matoyas kredisit vesite. So tend your garden, stand watch at the gate of your thoughts. Be gentle, but unwavering. Let the storms pass without becoming the storm. In this way you reclaim your mind, your days, your life, not by force, but by the steady power of seeing, choosing, and living from the freedom that was always yours to begin with.